Hello everybody, Abed's brother here, and today we're going to take a look at the performance of some old PCs versus Asterigos, Curse of the Stars. Asterigos Curse of the Stars was developed by ACME Game Studio, published by TinyBuild, released on PC October 11th, 2022. It uses the Unreal 4 engine and the DirectX 12 API. You can see the minimum and recommended specifications on screen. Kind of demanding for Unreal. I mean, it's Unreal 4. It's okay. It's not too bad. But to start off, we're going to go with the i5-4590 and the R9 280X. It needs some horsepower, but not too much horsepower. And we're going to go into the system options here. And you can see we are going to be at 1080p. And it's low. FSR is off. But that's why it says custom up at the top. By default, the settings default to FSR being turned on, but I've turned it off, and then that changes the setting preset to custom. But it is performance preset is the low preset. And you can see we are in the mid-70s, and we are using about 2.7 gigs of VRAM. So this tracks with other Unreal 4 engine games of the period, like Borderlands 3. Oh, I hate these things. It was kind of a fun game. It's a decent little Souls-like. I had never really heard of it, but it showed up cheap, and I picked it up, and it was sitting in my library, and then I was playing it, and I thought, you know what? Since I'm kind of playing it through, I may as well record a little benchmark video here. And it does run well on Linux, as you can see. R9 280X, not the most powerful GPU at all anymore, but 1080p low, it's keeping up with this one pretty easily. I couldn't find out very much about the developers. From what I can understand, I think they're from Taiwan? On GOG, this is on Steam, but on GOG, the extras like the art book and whatnot, is offered in English and Chinese. So, at least I think it's Chinese. I'm not very up on what the actual characters look like. But holding very good here. The challenge with Asterigos is that there are not places with long draw distances are hard to find. There are a couple places. There's a place in the city that has some really long draw distance, but that doesn't have any foliage. It's in a big, like, Grecian style. The architecture is drawn, I believe, from like ancient Greece or whatnot. So it's a lot of columns and white stone, and when you don't have there's not much that's complicated about that, about rendering it. You can see here, dip into about 70, but otherwise, very good from the R9 280X. We're gonna be pushing settings and resolution. Let's head up to the FX-8320e and the R9 290. Let's see what we can do here. So we were at 1080p low. Are we still at 1080p low? 1080p. It is performance, so it's the same settings as the R9 280X. So the only reason I would have left the settings the same is if medium was going to drag the frame rate down super below 60. It's an action game. Now, Asterigos is pretty generous with the iframes. In fact, that was one of the criticisms of this game when it came out, was that it was too easy. And it is very generous with the invincibility frames, so even with that, you still do want a good frame rate to get your timing down properly. But yeah, anyway, I settled on this this area for the benchmark run in the Sunken Outskirts just because we get a decent decent draw distance, and we've got some foliage going on. And that's arguably more demanding than anything else that's going to show up in the game. Now, there are a couple places, and that's why I'm using the fire, too. You can see in the bottom left of the screen there are actually 4 elements. Underneath the stamina bar and the health icon, you've got 4 things keyed on the first 4 F keys. And so purple is arcane, red is fire, the blue is ice, and the yellow is electricity. Nothing surprising, I'd expect. But the fire is easily the most impressive, I guess, visually impressive. The ice one does have some cold fog effects, but we got a little stuttering here. That's got to be the FX chip. No way that's the 290. Fireball! And, you know, for something like this, I don't know how big the studio was, and such. This was a very decent little game. I definitely enjoyed my time playing it. But I don't think it had a very, I don't think it was very popular at release. When I checked Steam charts before recording this video, I think there were 25 players currently online, of which I was one, obviously. Pretty good for the R9 290, but I think there was some stuttering here from the FX-8320e, so that's a little disappointing. Let's see if the i7-4790 and RX 480 are any better. But for this one, I did turn the settings up. So, still at 1080p. But now we are at the quality setting, which is basically high. But again, FSR, I turned FSR off, so it's basically 1080p high. And you can see we are mid-70s most of the time. See, the RX 480, I think it's a 256-bit bus. I think it has some bandwidth issues because it's very good at 1080p and can do some 1440p, but it definitely has some something definitely bottlenecks it once you get up to 4K for sure. And even in, as you'll see in this game, I'm going to show you 1440p in this game in a minute. The performance loss is quite drastic going from 1080p to 1440 on the RX 480. But it seems like I'm testing a lot of Unreal 4 games lately, and I'm actually planning to do another Unreal 4 game next week. You'll have to wait and see what that one is. But here at 1080p high, we're using 3 gigs of VRAM. So this is pretty well coded here, pretty well optimized for VRAM usage. But not exactly. There's not a lot of draw distance going on. There aren't a lot of objects on screen, so not a lot of things to load in. And the 4790 seems like it's handling this a lot better than the FX chip, which is interesting to me. I would have thought Unreal 4 was very, I want to say, optimized for CPUs with lots of cores. It was a multi-threaded engine for sure. But that usually plays to the FX chip's strengths, but it seems like that gave us some stutters with the 290. And here even I can see that the frame time graph got a little rough there for a little bit. Frame rate's good at 1080p high, no question about that. Not perfectly smooth though, but let's see how it does in 1440p, the RX 480 and i7-4790. So 1440p, and I reduced graphics to performance, which is low, but I disabled FSR. And we are at 100% resolution scale. So 1440p low, we are in the low to mid 40s. It's a little disappointing to me. I don't know why. I hoped for more from the RX480. Because it was marketed as like a basic 1440p card. But here, you clearly need FSR to get the most out of it at 1440p. It just does not have the power. It is not there. The VRAM is pretty good though, at 4.1. But the actual frame rate is, and look, we even have some disturbances in the frame time there, in the frame time graph. I felt a strange disturbance in the frame time graph. Oh, come on. Yeah, that thing, that creature spits stuff at you, it makes you slowed. Yeah, so this is a little disappointing to me. It's unfortunate. We're gonna have to see what Vega can do for that. But i7-4790, getting it done. The i5-4590 got it done too, so I have a hard time believing that they're still thinking there was a CPU issue with the FX-8320e, but I mean, the numbers don't lie. There was definite stuff there. And the 290 never stutters. Or almost never. I've never seen it stutter in any of these games. Tries to hit me so hard he falls down. He's chucking grenades. Yeah, down to 36. Definitely need FSR if you're going to be, and I believe, it doesn't say the version, I believe it's FSR 2. I don't think it's 2.1, I think it's straight up 2. 1440p disappointing on the RX480, but let's see how the Vega 64 and i7-5930K do at 1440p. And we are at 1440 and low. Because again, an FSR is off. Because again, I tried a higher graphical setting. I could not hold 60 FPS. So while Asterigos runs well, you know, I didn't really have any crashes or anything with it. It does seem like it needs a good amount of horsepower to get decent performance. Now, I think it looks fine at low settings. You could probably increase the textures to get a little bit sharper visuals. You can see Vega 64 at 1440p, we're using 4 gigs of VRAM, so you could definitely turn the textures up. Maybe turn on some better post-processing effects. Those don't really affect frame rate that much. We're dipping into the 63. I saw 63 there for a second. Yeah, 1440p low on Vega 64. That's also disappointing to me, but I guess Unreal 4 could be very demanding. It just seems like there's moving up to 1440p added a whole bunch of load, you know, because the R9 280X definitely handled this fine at 1080p. I would have expected Vega. It's almost like Vega's underperforming here. I should check the BIOS on the 5930K. This system is using a Chinese motherboard, and I disabled the power limit it doesn't overclock, but I disabled the power limit, so it'll boost. It'll boost to 3.5, 3.6 gigahertz on the CPU at all times. You know, there's no limit on max turbo boost. But I wonder if that got switched off, because that can lead to lower performance. I am not a big fan of Chinese motherboards, but the two that I have in my test rigs generally work pretty well. No complaints. I just wish I could overclock on this, because I got a huge cooler on it, a deep cool AK500. Like to overclock it a bit, but that's unfortunate. Disappointing from Vega. Let's see if the Intel Arc A770 and Ryzen 5 5500 can do any better. Now, Arc performed rather disappointingly in the Outer Worlds Spacer's Choice Edition. We're at 1440p again here. We are at Balanced, which is the medium preset, and FSR, as always, is disabled. So yeah, A770, little disappointing last week. I don't know what was up with the frame drops in the Outer Worlds Spacer Choice Edition. Blech. But here at 1440p medium, the A770 is performing great. We are staying low to mid 70s here at a higher setting than Vega. So I'd say the Arc A770 is definitely, this is a good game for Arc. This is, it's definitely performing as I would expect. Because you notice the frames are about the same as the Vega here, but we are at a higher preset. So we were able to turn everything up one whole notch. And the VRAM usage on us, we can't see the VRAM on the A770 obviously, but the VRAM usage on Asterigos is pretty low. We saw at 1440p with Vega, we were using about 4.2, 4.1 with the Arcs 480 at 1440p. Now that was both of them were at 1440p low, this is 1440p medium. Maybe we're using, at a guess, 5 gigs of VRAM at most. So if you have an 8 gig A750, A770, because they came in 8 gigs as well as 16 gigs, you're probably going to be fine in this game. It is not VRAM hungry at all. And it's staying fairly well utilized too, so good job all around for Intel Arc on this one. I still haven't seen a dip under 60. I saw 63 a second ago. Oh, there's 57. Okay, so we did dip under 60. For a brief second, for a frame or two there, we were under 60. So very, very odd setup here. Yep, mid to low 70s, and it dipped briefly into the high 50s. So a bit of an odd one here, in that Vega seemed to be underperforming, and the A770 performed as expected. RX 480, unfortunately, don't try 1440p. You're going to be disappointed with it, unless you turn on FSR and start using upscaling. The 290 had some stutters, but I think that was from the FX chip. But the 4590 and R9 280X got the job done at 1080p low, so you can definitely play Asterigos Curse of the Stars on a pretty, for today, low-spec system, and have a pretty good time in this little indie Souls-like here. That's all I got for you today. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.